Hello and welcome to the Global Business Podcast Show. I'm your host, Mark Philpott. Hello everyone and welcome back to the show. It's great to be here with you all again. Thank you for all those people across the world that are tuning into the Global Business Podcast Show. We're all learning something from each other in these difficult times for businesses in all countries, and that's the idea of the show, that we're collaborating and sharing information with each other. If you're looking for other podcast interests that I'm doing at the moment, I've got a travel show called the Global Travel Channel, and I have another conversation show called Humanity Inspire, so check those out. I'll leave the links in the show notes today. Now, on today's show, we have a guest who is focused on a very important part of running a business. Yes, something that's sometimes forgotten about in terms of how important it is. So why don't we go over and meet her right now and find out what it is. So it's a very warm welcome to the Global Business Podcast to Ivana Katz. Ivana, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Mark.
I'm going to start off with a huge apology because when we were just chatting offline, I called you a South African person and you're actually from the Czech Republic.
I am indeed. I'm a Czech chick.
Nothing against South Africa or my friends out there in South Africa, but I did get it wrong because as you will hear when you listen to Ivana on this podcast, she does sound very South African, I must say. And yet you told me you don't get
really?
that too much.
No, I generally get told people think that I'm either Italian or Greek. And I'm not sure whether that's the accent or because of how I look. But anyway, I'll take it anyway.
You're a multi-cultural personality, that's for sure. Huh?
Yeah, I like to think so.
Well, listen, thank you very much for coming on the show today. Can you tell all my wonderful listeners around the world, whereabouts are you exactly based at the moment?
I'm actually in Sydney on the northern beaches at Narrabeen, so very close to the beach, a beautiful area.
What a beautiful part of the world.
I am very lucky, indeed.
And how has beautiful Sydney been coping with COVID-19 and all the other things that are happening in the world at the moment?
You know what? I think we've done so incredibly well. And to be honest, Mark, for me, being a geek who spends most of her time on the computer, it hasn't really impacted me that much because I work from home. So being in quarantine, that's kind of like my everyday lifestyle. But I think a lot of people here in Sydney have been very respectful to what we've been told. And so I think that's made a huge difference why our numbers have gone down really quickly and why we've been able to reopen.
Yeah, fantastic. And, you know, we have to understand that different parts of the world are in different stages of this whole process. And while some of us are lucky, like you and I both, we work from our homes and we're able to do what we love doing, other people have been enormously affected by what's going on around the world at the moment.
I know it's devastating. You know, I look at the numbers every so often, and it's scary, the numbers as they keep rising, especially in the US. And I do have extended family in the US, and so you know we do worry about them. But I guess there's not a lot that we can do from here.
Yeah. We just have to send out all our positive vibes. And,
we do.
I'm sure that'll help people. Now, we're going to talk about business today, and my listeners are already fascinated to know what you actually do from home every day for your business. So can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing?
Yeah, well, I like to think that I build websites that build businesses. And I work mainly with small business entrepreneurs and startups, helping to get them online as quickly as possible and without the techie overwhelm. I find that most people, the first thing they say to me when they call me up, you know, I'd love a website, but I don't know anything about technology. And so it's kind of my job to make it easy for them. And I try not to speak too geek. I prefer to speak in plain English and just take things step by step so that, because the web design process can be overwhelming and confusing. And so I like to show people sort of one step at a time to make sure that their website goes from 0 to 100 without them getting too stressed.
Wonderful. How long have you been doing it for?
Oh, since about 1825. I actually started when I was, about 17 years ago.
I was going to say, did you build a website for Leonardo da Vinci?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I started very early on. I've always been fascinated by technology. And so when the internet kind of started coming in, I got very curious, and I did a couple of courses on, it was called Front Page back then, Microsoft Front Page. And I learned basically on the job, and through my clients as they needed things, I would explore and research things. And so it's been quite a journey.
Microsoft Front Page. I didn't know there was another person in the world that could still remember that other than me.
Yes, that's me. Hands up.
Fantastic. So you've always been into the techie things. Has that been something that's been passed down by a role model or someone in the family, or how did you pick it up?
Well, my brother's a geek as well, so we've always spoken of technology, and he's a software engineer. So his geekiness goes to the next level. I'm kind of, a level below. But yeah, I don't know. I've always been fascinated by that and travel. So combine the two, and website design for me has been the perfect job.
So would you say it's your dream job?
I would say so, yeah, because it allows me to be creative. And the reason I actually started it was because I suddenly found myself a single parent when my son was 2 years old, and I wanted to watch him grow. And so I needed a business that would allow me to work around his sleeping schedule at the time. And so I thought, well, what can I do? And I had a couple of friends approach me and ask me if I could create a website because they knew I was interested in it. And so I gave it a go, and then the rest is history.
Well, that's fantastic. I love speaking to people that are actually doing something that they really, really enjoy, because it makes such a difference, doesn't it?
Oh, it absolutely does. But don't get me wrong. It can be stressful at times, and especially initially the technical side, because I didn't have a university degree. And so I had to learn a lot on the job. But one thing that I did figure out was to just find people that can help to support me. And so once I've done that, it's kind of taken the pressure off, and I now have a team that I work with. So if there's techie stuff that I can't manage, they handle it all for me.
Great. I said in the intro to the show, which you haven't actually heard yet, that doing a website is something that's often overlooked in how important it is in an organization. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 1,000%. And you know what? I had a conversation with a hairdresser not that long ago, and she was telling me, we were talking about what I did, and she said, well, I don't think I need a website. She said, I've got my Instagram account and that's enough. And then I said to her, but what happens if Instagram shuts down, or what if your account gets hacked? Like, are you going to lose all your followers? Because oftentimes and it doesn't matter what social media account it is, if it gets hacked, oftentimes they will close it down. So if that's your only way of running your business, it's going to be tough trying to get back online again. And so that's why I tell people it's you should have a website, and that should be the center of your business universe. And then everything else should come off of that. And I think many people don't realize, you look at Google Plus, for example, 198 million users, and they shut it down. So if all your online or your digital marketing was done through Google Plus, you'd have no business. Yeah. Or if you look at MySpace, people stopped using it. And so again, if you had put all your eggs into the MySpace basket, you might as well shut your your business down. So yes,
really good advice.
So that in a roundabout way, yes, absolutely need to have a website.
Now, you talked about how you help smaller businesses and entrepreneurs getting their business websites off the ground, what would you say are a couple of really important things that people should think about before they even start to build a website and get into that world?
Okay, so one of the first things that they will have to think about is the domain name. So the thing that comes after www. And generally, most people would have their business name as part of their domain name. You can also have a brand. So if you represent a particular brand in your business, or you can have keywords. So things that people would use to search for your products and services. The shorter the domain name, the better. And what I often tell people is if your clients are going to be mainly in Australia, make sure that you have a .com.au domain name. If your business is global, then .com is fine, but it is perceived that a .com domain name is for businesses based out of the US. I don't recommend that people go and have any other extensions other than .com.au or .com, because that's what people expect to see. So the domain name is obviously the first decision that you have to make to make when it comes to building a website. The other thing is start thinking about your credibility online, and so collect testimonials, case studies, before and after photos and that sort of thing, even before you start building the website.
That's really good advice. What are your thoughts around a lot of not-for-profit organisations that I'm aware of have .org as their part of the URL? What do you think of that?
And yes, that's absolutely fine for non-profits. That's perfect. But I'm talking about more businesses. So the .com or .com.au. And the reason is that's what people expect to see. One thing that I have seen, unfortunately, some people register like 20, 30, 40 domain names. And they believe that the more domain names they have with particular keywords, the better they're going to be off on search engines. And that's simply not true. Like having one or two domain names just to protect your business is fine, but Google actually looks at over 200 different elements before they rank a page. And so having a domain name with keywords is only a very tiny part of the whole algorithm. So, yeah.
Great advice there. Now, in terms of, so we've started off by getting, the right domain name. Do you suggest that people sit down and do a site map for their website, on a piece of paper so they can understand what it's visually going to look like?
I think most people would find that challenging, but at least writing down. And so what I do is I generally, before I start designing a website, I've put together a number of checklists that I give to my clients so they can go through it and decide what pages they're going to have on a website, and then start kind of planning from there. But unless you've done a website before, most people won't know where to start. And so I think if you know what a sitemap is, great, absolutely put it together. But for most people that don't know what a sitemap is, then just a list of pages that you want on the website, and also have an idea about what you want the website to do and what you want to achieve with the website. Is it going to be only a brochure, or do you actually want to make money off of the website through e-commerce or affiliate links or that sort of thing? So being very clear in your mind how you're going to use the website is important. But I think, any decent web designer will ask you the right questions.
Is a bad website better than no website?
No. No. The reason I say that is you are judged on your web design skills. And so I often see people, they give it a go. They might create a Wix website or Squarespace website. And and it kind of makes me a little bit angry, because a lot of the website builders, they advertise and say, how easy it is to build a website. just by dragging and dropping a few images and a bit of text. But the truth is, if you don't know what you're doing, people will judge you based on your web design skills. So if your website looks poor, people will assume that whatever service you offer is also poor. So, and oftentimes your website is the first thing that people see. So you need to make a good impression.
So other than choosing the wrong kind of platform, what are some of the other big mistakes that people make when they first head into the website development process?
Okay, so one of the biggest thing that I see is people don't realize they've got 7 seconds to make a good impression. And so their homepage needs to be perfect almost. I read statistics somewhere, there's about 1.8 billion websites, that's a billion with a B, online. And so there are about 200 new websites coming online I think it's every minute. So there's a lot of competition. So you need to make sure that you've got all the right information on the website. But another number that I like to mention is the 7 seconds. So when somebody arrives at your website, they need to feel like they're at home. They need to feel like you understand them. So having a good tagline, which tells people exactly what you do. So in my case, what I said was, I build websites that build businesses. People are going to know that I'm not a travel blogger, or that I create websites for, shoe stores, for example. I build websites that build businesses, and I go to explain a little bit more for service providers. So tagline is really important. Your images are also incredibly important because people are very visual, and so you have to grab them within those 7 seconds. And the next thing that I tell people is it takes anywhere between 9 to 13 touch points for people to get to know you, like you, and trust you. And so you need to find a way to stay in touch with people. And the best way to do that is to collect email addresses and then provide more information, provide more value, get people to follow you on social media, download different resources and that sort of thing. So capturing people's email address is very, very important.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I guess in terms of we're heading, into different stages of COVID-19 around the world that's affecting businesses in a different way. How was your business going before COVID-19 came along? Did you, have a lot of customers? Was business going well for you pre-COVID-19?
Actually, it was because as I said, I've been doing this for a long time, so I have a lot of regular customers. Things did slow down a little bit only because a lot of my customers were marriage celebrants, for example, so they obviously had to shut down. So I felt a little bit of, a turn in business, sort of not in the right way. But for the most part, everything was ticking over perfectly. And I kind of have my business set up in a way that it earns income even while I sleep. And so I was okay.
That's a nice thing to have, isn't it? Money coming in while you're sleeping.
We
all want to know the secret behind that one.
Well, you know what? It's a concept that I learned a long time ago, actually, when I started in business. I mean, otherwise you end up just really, if all my income depended on the hours that I put into my business, then I'd really be just buying myself a job. And so what I did was I offer extra services for clients that they pay me for on a monthly basis, for example. And, I have affiliate links. Are you familiar with affiliate programs?
Sure am.
Okay. Yeah. So I've got those built into my website as well. And so that's kind of allowed me to keep going and selling other people's products and services that are relevant to my customers.
Have you touched on the podcast world yet? Have you got customers that are doing podcasts?
No, I haven't gone down that path yet.
Well, it's the fastest online growing business at the moment is the podcast industry, and all these people that are starting up podcasts, they need a website. So maybe it's something that's an opportunity for you in the future.
Well, fantastic. I'm always open for new opportunities.
So getting back to COVID-19, and one of the reasons I wanted to do this show was to illustrate to people around the world how different business owners are dealing with COVID-19's impact on their business and the economy in the country that they're actually working in. So you talked about having, I guess, a diverse base of customers, but what actually happened when COVID-19 hit Sydney? Did you all of a sudden see customers just stopping overnight, or was there a slow transition to downturn? How did it affect your business in that way?
Well, as I said, for a few customers who were heavily affected, such as marriage celebrants, they basically stopped. I mean, obviously their website still keeps going, but they can't sort of take on new services. A lot of my other clients are coaches and consultants and service providers, and so they were able to transition online without too many headaches. And so I haven't chased people up in terms of offering them services and extra products during the 3-month period, because I knew everybody was so heavily focused on their families. And so I thought I'll just let them be, and let's start looking at maybe remarketing their website once we start coming out of restrictions. And so I'm kind of looking at that at the moment, is how can I help my clients transition back into post-COVID-19 world, so to speak.
Do you envisage that people's websites are going to have to change as a result of the new business environment?
That's a really good question. As I said initially, I've always believed that your website should be the number one priority when you start a business. And so I think even post-COVID-19, that's not going to change. I think people need to think a lot more carefully about how they're going to manage their business during any crisis, whether it's health crisis or family crisis. And, I said to my son not long ago, or when we were just going into lockdown, to me, COVID-19 felt like chemotherapy. I had been through chemo a few years ago, and everything just felt so out of control. And we knew that we couldn't stop it. We had to go through it. And I knew we would come out on the other end, but I think a lot of people were nervous and they didn't know how it was going to impact them, especially if they were losing jobs or they were having to work from home. So I think having the control over, in my case, my website and my clients, I felt relatively at ease, even though watching people die was horrendous. But I wasn't too worried about my business and how it would impact me and my family.
I love the analogy, because in a lot of ways it's about survival, isn't it? And a lot of people are looking at this, whether it be from a personal perspective or from a business perspective, that we're to a largest extent in survival mode, and we're trying to work out what is the new way of doing things so that we can survive. So I love that analogy that you just used. Did COVID-19 impact you personally from an emotional point of view? Did you have days of depression or sadness associated with what was going on, in the inner circle of your world?
Well, you know what, as I said, because I had been through chemotherapy about 3 years ago, that rocked my world. Like, that was tough going through that. But it also prepared me for dealing with crises like COVID-19. So, of course, I had a couple of days when I felt really insecure and afraid. I also felt the frustration because I love traveling. And so knowing I won't be able to travel for a while, that affected me a little bit. But chemo really prepared me for this. I was flat on my back for weeks on end. Now I'm healthy. And so I never really went through depression, but I do know that people have found it really hard, especially if they've lost their jobs and they kind of they felt lost. my business, I just kept going basically. And I never, like whenever I did feel a little bit down, I have ways of distracting myself, and that's usually with work. And so I'm lucky in that it hadn't affected me too much.
Wonderful resilience, I'm hearing.
Thank you.
Is the community that you work within, and I'm assuming that a lot of entrepreneurs and startup business owners are people that are, highly stressed. They've got a lot going on. They're trying to do everything. They're burning the midnight oil and all the rest of it. Is it a very close-knit community that you're working with within your customer base?
No, I think that, most of them are like micro businesses. So they're the ma and pa businesses. And oftentimes it might be the wife that has started her business, but she has her husband who is still financially supporting her or helping the family and that sort of thing. So I think small business owners generally look out for each other and they try to help each other out. I know I'm a member of many Facebook groups, and I see the incredible support that people give each other, and that's been really heartwarming.
Yeah, beautiful. Now, you're based in Australia, so I'm interested to know, for the sake of our listeners around the world, has the Australian government done much to help your business during these times?
Oh my God, I've been so grateful for everything our government has done. I mean, I was really blown away by all the offers of support they've given. And initially, when things were really uncertain, I was worried. My main concern was, if people are losing jobs and they have no money, what is the crime rate going to be like? But our Prime Minister stepped in and he said, well, this is how I'm going to help you. And everything unraveled really quickly. And to be honest, I have found that even dealing with government departments, like in the past, you had to wait on hold for maybe an hour, and now you get through so quickly, and they've put on so much new staff. And so in how they've handled it, oh my God, I give them 5 stars, 10 stars.
Okay, good. Well, there you go. Everybody listening around the world. I was going to say you should come to Australia and do your business, but you can't actually get here at the moment. But,
well, you could probably wait for 2, but yeah, no, you couldn't.
we'll have to wait and see what happens there. One of the things I'm interested to know, Ivana, about you in particular is, what have you learned about yourself as a business owner and business leader during this time?
I think the most important thing is that you take care of yourself, that you take time out, that you do things like meditation, yoga, go for walks, anything that makes you feel good. Again, this is something that I look back at when I was going through chemotherapy. It's for me, it's just so similar, because as you said, it was, fighting for survival. And the things that brought me joy was just talking to my friends and laughing. And so I would watch funny shows, just anything to get my mind off what was actually going on in the world. And I restricted, and this is kind of post 9/11, I pretty much stopped watching the news, because I used to find that it affected me so much to see what was going on everywhere else, and I felt helpless because I couldn't do anything about it. So I thought, I'll just stop watching it and see how I go. And so I made a very conscious decision that the things that I watch are things that either inspire me. So I watch a lot of TED Talks, and I noticed that you've done a TED Talk. Fantastic. Yes. And just funny shows, things that, I don't have to think about, and things that don't stress me.
Very good advice there. You've learned those things about yourself during this period. What have you learnt about the business environment that you actually operate in? Is there anything that's kind of stuck out that you didn't know about the business that you're involved in before COVID-19 came along?
In terms of my business, no.
In terms of other people, I guess in terms of other people's business, I guess what I'm asking is, have you seen new opportunities as a result of what's happened with COVID-19?
I think the fear of people not having a job to go back to, I think people have been a lot more are open to learning things and open to technology. And I could even see that with my parents. We often talk to them about doing Skype calls and doing Zoom calls and that sort of thing. And they said, no, not interested, don't want to know. But then when we were in lockdown, they suddenly thought, you know what, we'll give it a go. And I have to say, they did an excellent job. It took me about an hour to get them online onto Zoom, but we did it. And so I think a lot of our small business owners have found a new way to do business using technology, whether it would be online banking or, recording videos. And I know a few yoga instructors, for example, that had to shut down their studios. They started doing videos, recording videos. And even my local gym, I was talking to the owner of the gym, and she said, yeah, we took everything online. And when I was talking to her the other day, she said she's found a big downturn now that the gyms are open. A lot of people have not come back. And I think people found a different way of exercising or maybe they just don't have the finances, or that's not a priority for them at the moment. But I suggested that maybe they keep going with online, because they can offer things to a much broader audience, but for a lot less money.
Yeah, absolutely. So that in itself is creating lots of new potential opportunities for you and your business, because these people are going to need to have websites.
Absolutely. Yeah,
wonderful. So one of the things that I've spoken to other business leaders on this show about is using this so-called downtime that we have at the moment as business leaders to think and reflect more about your business and where you're actually at. A lot of business owners have said to me, we're so busy on the business every day, yet this period of time has actually given us time to stop and to think and to work through how we're going to strategize going forward. Have you kind of seen that as well within your work environment?
Oh, absolutely. I have loved the downtime because for me, my computer's on 24/7. And so I've only just sort of in the last 3 months started turning the computer off just so that I can have a break on the weekends and stuff. Because before that, when an email came out, I would be thinking about it. But so the technology side of it has been really good.
Yeah, no, I guess in terms of what I was alluding to was that a lot of business leaders have said that they've used this downtime to maybe look at things within their business that they may have not either noticed before or had time to focus on. And I assume that websites is one of those things that people, prior to what's happened with COVID-19, and you've already mentioned about the gyms bringing their business online, I'm sure that other customers also have kind of thought, okay, I've got some downtime now. Focusing on my website would be a really good thing to do, and bringing it up to date and changing a few things. And I was just wondering whether you've seen that in reality.
Yes, a lot of clients had started thinking about it, but I think, the financial side of things probably prevented them. So I'm just starting to see people, as we are coming from lockdowns and restrictions, they can see that their business is going to kickstart. But I think they've had had time to think about their marketing strategies, perhaps putting together some extra resources for their clients. So I'm seeing that we are starting to update people's websites. So they've had a bit of time to reflect on where they were and where they want to go. And some people have decided, you know what? This business is not for me. I don't want to do this. And so they've decided to pivot altogether and just go into something totally different, or into different platforms and different ways of doing business.
I love that. I love how this period has actually made people realize they don't like what they're doing, and it's giving them an opportunity to start again in something new. I was just speaking to a gentleman on one of my shows yesterday, and he was saying exactly that. It's an opportunity to reinvent yourself right now and to follow that passion that you really love doing.
That's absolutely right. So for me, I'm still following my passion, because website design has, I've loved doing it. So for me, it's given me a bit more time to stop and to work on more resources, because I like to give people as many resources as I can. And so I've been able to write articles and blog posts and that sort of thing, which I didn't really have much time before. So for me, I honestly loved having this downtime.
So are you going to change anything about the way that your business operates going forward? Are there things that you've identified as things you'd like to change?
I think moving forward, I'd probably like to outsource a little bit more of the web design process and focus more on the marketing. And so just kind of getting myself out there, because I really enjoy writing, and I've traveled with my son a lot and did a lot of writing as to places that we've been to and things we've done. And so what I'd really love to do is maybe do a little bit more writing tutorials, recording videos, that sort of thing. But when you're in the business, as you know, if you're having to do everything, sometimes marketing falls by the wayside. So I would really like to sort of outsource some more work and focus on working on the business rather than in the business.
So where do you see that in, say, 3 to 5 years from now? What's your job description going to look like, do you think?
Sitting on the beach in Hawaii with my laptop.
You've already got it worked out.
Yeah, Hawaii's my happy place. Or maybe sailing around the world. No, probably not. I don't do very well on the sea. But I think it would be really living the laptop lifestyle. I would love to travel a lot more. So if I can have people working for me, from around the world, similar to the way you've got things set up, I think that would be it.
What do you think will change in the web kind of world, website world, in the next couple of years? Do you see big changes coming along? I guess I'm referring to things like the increasing use of video content that a lot of companies and individuals are using. Do you see other new forms of technology coming in? They're going to be very important for websites?
You know what? One thing that I have noticed, and it's been happening for quite a few years, is that simple is the new black. Simplifying things. Back when I started designing websites, it was have as much information as you can on a website, just so that people can find you, they can read about it. But I have seen a huge change in that everything is so much simpler now. And I think what you said about having videos, because we are so lazy, we don't want to read, we don't want to do work, and watching a video is so much easier. So absolutely, videos and anything electronic, so podcasts that people can listen to, ebooks, things that audio books, things that people can do electronically, is going to be coming up a lot more, even more so than it is now. And I realize that many people are afraid of making videos because, the hair's not always perfect and things like that. But the truth is, we used to see a lot of corporate videos and they were so polished. And these days, people expect things to be real, and so they don't expect your hair to be perfect, and they don't expect you not to make mistakes. And so I think, if people are looking at growing their business, I think definitely looking into creating videos and uploading them to YouTube and sharing the hell out of them on social media. I think that's definitely the way to go.
I had a friend say to me the other day, quite sarcastically, that I have a great face for podcasting.
He's no longer a friend, right?
He is a friend, because sometimes you need to hear the truth.
Yeah, but that's his truth.
We take it with a grain of salt. Ivana. We take it with a grain of salt.
It's funny
now,
though.
Before I wrap up with you today, and I could talk for hours with you about websites and things, but I'd like you to give a couple of pieces of advice for anybody sitting out there in podcast listening land today who's in the beginning stages of thinking of building a new website and going down that path. What's a few pieces of advice that you'd give them today?
Okay, so one of the most important things is that you build credibility online. As I mentioned, people need to feel like they know you, they trust you before they buy from you. So including things such as testimonials, having case studies, maybe portfolio of work that you have done before, photo gallery of before and after photos, maybe product reviews on other websites, including Google, recently completed projects, also having money back guarantee that gives people a sense of peace, that, you know, if something goes wrong, you will refund their money. The other way is, and this goes back to sort of the print days, is when your business is featured in any type of media, whether it be in print, online, having that on your website. Again, people believe other people about your business a lot more than if you're telling them about your business. So if you've been featured in any media or if you've done any talks, include that on your website. If you had won awards or are part of any well-known trade associations, I would also include that. One of the biggest mistakes, and this breaks my heart, and I've just recently done something called featured businesses, and I list a lot of small businesses on my website, is the amount of people that have only a contact form on their website. And do I have enough time to share a story of something that I did many years ago?
Please do, yes.
Okay. So back when I started my business, I spent something like $6,000 on advertising in print. There was like a PC magazine, and I was advertising my business, and I didn't get one single inquiry. I was devastated because I thought, oh my God, $6,000, 18 years ago was a lot of money. And that was kind of meant to launch my business, and not one single inquiry. And I couldn't believe it. I didn't know what I had done wrong. And then a few weeks went by, and I got a call from a gentleman named Bill. And he's like, well, when are you going to get back to me about my website? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, I filled out a form on your website and you haven't gotten back to me. And I said, I didn't know you filled out a form. No. And I started digging, and there were 30 inquiries. My form had failed. So even though I had tested it, the form had failed. And 3 months later, contacting people, asking if they want a website, doesn't exactly give them a lot of confidence. But I learned a very valuable lesson. And this is what I see a lot of people do, is they only have a contact form on their website. And contact forms have a way of failing, unfortunately. So I would say test your contact form, but have as many other ways that people can contact you. Have your phone number on there, have links to social networks, have your address, because again, people feel a lot more comfortable that you are a real business. So the contact details are critical.
Yeah, fantastic pieces of advice. Ivana, I'm going to put your business links in the show notes today. So if anybody's listening, no matter where you are in the world, you might be in the Czech Republic, you might be in South Africa, you might be in Italy, all these places that Ivana has been tempted to go. So people can find you and contact you, because this has been really good advice on how to get into a proper website environment. Do it properly from the start, and it's like everything else in life, folks. If you do it properly the first time, you won't have to redo it time and time again, right, Ivana?
Absolutely, couldn't agree more.
So thank you very much for coming on the show. I'd love to have you back at another time, because you and I are going to chat about all sorts of things. So until then, Ivana Katz, thank you very much for coming on the Global Business Podcast Show.
And thank you for the opportunity, Mark. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Ivana Katz was my guest today on the Global Business Podcast Show. Ivana is currently in Sydney, Australia, by way of Prague in the Czech Republic many years ago. So if you're looking for a great website partner to build you the ultimate in websites, please contact Ivana. Her contact details are in the show notes today. Now, if you're looking for more podcast episodes on business, head on over to our website, theglobalbusinesspodcast.com, and you will find all the episodes we've done there. If travel is your thing, then head over to globaltravelchannel.com. You'll find over 150 episodes about travel that I've done with amazing guests all around the world. And if you're looking for a bit of inspiration, a bit of laughter, a bit of entertainment, then head over to humanity.com, humaneity.com, and you'll find my latest show there where I'm talking to people all over the world about anything. So there we go, a little bit of inspiration there. 3 podcast shows for you to choose from. Thank you for telling people about this podcast show. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, reach out via our social media platforms, and we would love to have you on the show. That's it for this time. My name's Mark Philpott. It's been great to have you all with us. Thank you very much for listening. I look forward to being back with you all again very soon.